Well, why don't we talk about the locks?
I like it.
So,
Yeah, hold up.
um,
Give me a second. Well, I'm launching the Facebook Live, and
okay.
I like to be really real and start it up. I like people seeing us awkwardly waiting for this to populate.
This is my favorite part of a live video is when people go like this and they're looking and they go, hmm. And they're not doing anything. They're just
Yeah,
waiting.
there was waiting. Okay, cool. We're in.
Okay.
So, what's going on, everybody? This is Ryan Traba from First Wakeups. This is First Wakeups Unscripted. This Monday night project, if you're familiar with it, Dustin Moon and I started this late last year, November, December, October time. I don't know. Devin's been with us before. Thanks, Kevin, for saying I'm pretty. I appreciate you. And so Dustin and I did this every week for a little while, and then we kind of decided to do this once a month. And it used to be called Do Weird Shit, and where we
Yeah.
would intentionally show up and just talk about whatever weird stuff was on our mind. I have since rebranded this as First Wake Up's Unscripted. This is definitely part of mine. Today, I got my man, Devin James, on here, the flow therapist. If you don't know what flow therapy is, I think that's just how we'll start. Devin, tell us what flow therapy is.
So flow therapy, as I've been delving into it, it's become well, it's gone like this, man. So you knew flow therapy is straight prose. This was like freestyle, but we're talking about matters of what's going on in here, right? So you're bubbling. So for example, I'll take an excerpt of the case. So the case has me going to a place that's uncomfortable. Because before, when there were leads to chase, I just run from them. Now he's staring me in the face. And my excuse has been that I haven't been confident enough to handle what's behind that door that might punish me, beat me up and pummel me, treat me like the Punisher, eat me up, chew me up, and spit me out to tell the truth. But the truth, when I add it all up, the sum of truth hits me with a sobering dose like 100 proof. So that's like the first version of flow therapy. Now I'm getting into more of like this. It's just flow. We're flowing like I'm more of into like a storytelling because I'm posting not only on Facebook, but I'm going over to LinkedIn now and
Mm,
posting that way because it goes for all walks of life. I mean, whether you're talking about personal, whether you're talking about business, we all go through this kind of stuff that we need to work out and technically flow out. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do. I like that. I like that a lot. What success or how has it felt to instead of man? Because when you were in the Facebook group last year when it was kind of first starting, and like there was a bunch of us who would just kind of like write rhymes back and forth to each other,
Right.
and I remember I actually for like a week I was like I'm gonna write a poem like every day for a week that like all rhymed, and that was challenging for me. There'd be some days when it would just come out and you'd find words. So now that you're not kind of forcing yourself to write all the prose, as you say, how much more success are you having like getting this stuff out and putting it into words?
Well, I would say that the success has been staying consistent because before, when it was prose related, it was really hard to come up with really good stuff consistently because that means that you're having to take this thing and whatever you're feeling, and now you're having to work it around like a puzzle. Okay, so not only am I feeling
Mm,
this, but now I have to find the words that hit deep, or now I have to find a way to tell a story around this thing, which all I want to do is just tell what it is.
yeah,
And so it's given me the ability to just be able to post every day because when I free write, it's so much like it's just free form. Like here I am, it may go into little tangents, but there's going to be an intention in the post. And meanwhile, I've been compiling all this stuff into like a Word document to where I'm just compiling it all. Maybe I'll have a book one day, man. But it's just now it can just come out. The prose is still there. That's an aspect of it, but it's not just prose now.
What are you hoping to help people do, like overall?
Overall, if I can help people to go in rather than pull out, you know how it goes, like dive into the deep water. I mean, the deep water, it's a freaky thing, but I feel like there's a lot of aspects in today's world of people see something like that's freaky. They see fear and they want to run. And you can't run away from fear because fear is it's one step ahead of you. Like every time you stop and take a breath, ah, oh God, where's fear at? Ah, it's right there. I have to keep running now. Like now, what I want to teach people to do through prose or just flow is to say, okay. And it's almost taken on like 3 words. Remember how we talked about the 3-word process?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So then you've got, like, let's say you've got anxiety, stress, nervousness. Okay, what's anxiety about? So then you take the anxiety and then you open that up to 3 more words. Okay, so I'm anxious about job, relationship, money. Okay, which of these words, let's scan them, let's frequency scan them. Okay, I'm feeling job. Okay, that's pretty good. Relationship. Okay. Money. Okay. Let's pinpoint that. Now let's open up that. Let's give 3 more words to money. All right. Why am I feeling that way about money? As you begin to open up each word, more stuff comes out. And then, as I've talked about the layer cake, what we thought was top layer stuff, now we get down to the bottom and they're like, oh crap, dude, this has everything to do with one thing. And that's kind of what my hope is, to help people get down to the bottom of the root cause of all of this stuff. Because usually it's one epicenter item. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. So, in my exploration of myself, man, 99 times out of 99, like whenever my insecurities like are really erupting, it almost always goes back to my relationship with my brother and how I viewed my mom treating us differently. Like, so like that sparks up my stuff about injustice, my stuff about people like throwing tantrums, like all kinds of stuff, like these things that like really jack me up today. But it's really funny when I look at it. And that was one of the things I remember about. I was the oldest, and I remember being home alone a lot from like the time I was 8 years old, and like being expected to like take care of younger kids. And then, you know, you come home and then stuff isn't right. And so there's like never this praise thing. You're looking for that attention. And then when you finally get it, it's like not the kind of attention you want.
Right.
So like all that stuff. So I get it. I do a similar, I really like how you said that. Just pick 3 words and then pick 3 words under that. I think that's really smart. It's super simple too. Something that anybody can do. So yeah, if you're listening, if there's something bothering you, just try it out. Let us know how that works just to get. And again, I think so many times people are like, well, what do I do once I find the root cause? Let's not worry about that right now. Let's just find the root first. Yeah. And then you can, and then because I like to use it as like, you know, as you're talking about the case, you know, like it's like a detective, like we're just looking for the next clue. So we'd be like, okay, I see a clue over there. Let's just walk over there. Let's observe this other clue and just, you know, I like to, so I do something similarly called like a timeline, where I usually have people like write their birthday, and then today's date, and then just remember. And then for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, write down every single event that comes to mind while the timer's going and put them down in as chronologically in order as possible. Mm-hmm. And man, and then if you did that, your exercise side by side, and you said money, boom, that the money thing's in that timeline somewhere. The anxiety thing, it's because it's all connected in a way. And I really like that. It's super simple too. As far as like writing goes, you know, that's a really cool idea. I like it. Cool, man.
So yeah, that's kind of where flow therapy is now. And, you know, it's just using it to continually delve into stuff, to continually like spin stuff. Because some people don't realize it until like maybe you spin it just the right way. Mm-hmm. Like, they're sitting there at the plate and they're getting fastballs and they're like, whatever, man, I'm just gonna knock home runs. Whatever, I got this life. Whatever. You throw them a curveball and they're like, what? What was that?
Yeah.
Dude, what was that? And then they're back to fastballs, and then but now they're like, wait, what? I, oh, dude, so then it becomes like this pattern of like, when it puts you off kilter, all of a sudden you're put outside your comfort zone, but then you can kind of be like, okay, let's take this, and now we got it. We can try and put it back in our comfort zones now that we know that it's there. But if you just get fastballs your whole life, then yeah, you're gonna be cool until
Yeah.
you don't.
Until you don't. And I think one of the cool things about that comfort zone, whether you're leaving it to experience joy or fear or whatever you're leaving it to experience, the more you kind of duck out of there a little bit at a time and come back, you'll notice that comfort zone gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
And you're just taking those little steps. You take two. And so sometimes people are like, it's 2 steps forward, is 1 step back. And they look at that as if this negative thing. But if you think about it, you're
Right.
still a step forward. That bubble's a little bit bigger. That's actually like a really positive thing. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Or maybe some people say 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I don't know. Because to me, it's just steps. Steps are steps. Keep moving and see what you can find while you're out there and check it out. So,
yeah,
cool, man.
Exactly. It may not even a backward step. It may be a side step. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, steps are steps to me. For real.
Yeah.
Tell us about the LP.
So the Flow Therapy album is 5 tracks. Most people had heard them thus far. I've had some of them animated. So I finally just took 5 of the best of the most produced stuff, like The Locks, World War Me, The Case, Frequency Filters, and Roboticism. And Roboticism I literally wrote one day. So I'm doing flow therapy with like this 13-year-old kid. We're focusing on songwriting. And then his mom wrote my voice coach, my voiceover coach that I've been going to for like the last 5 or 6 years, and an email about how a robot in a company got fired because they weren't emotional enough or they weren't human enough to be able to handle the human elements. And she goes, man, like, I want you guys to be able to teach this kid and to keep teaching this kid how to be human so that we don't get robotic. And then I'm like, wait, how could I write about a robot wanting to be human? And then I took elements of myself where it's like, everybody's constantly searching for home, or this idea of getting rewired and rewired and rewired, like trying to take the bad habits and trying to get outside your comfort zone. And then, but in the same time, like, you're also in a patternized life sometimes to where, it happens like this. It happens like this. Like every day is like this, and you can get lost in just the monotony of life. And I'm like, well, what if we just flipped it, man, and we talked about a robot who wanted to be human and who said, I'm done, dude. I'm done checking off lists. I'm done trying to do all this. I'm done trying to be a robot, man. I see humans like doing human shit, dude, and I want that. And so that's how I wrote. That's what I wrote about it.
No, I freaking loved it. It's really cool. It's cool. Where can people find that at?
So they can find it on Bandcamp. Let's see. There's a link. I just don't have it available to throw into the comments right now.
We'll toss it. Just toss me later, and I'll add it to the video comments. And
Okay.
so my little girl's trying to get in the door. She might break in here in a second. So
that's all good, dude.
What does being human mean to you?
Being human to me is feeling like it's this is because I've been focusing a lot on emotional intelligence. And you and I, we strive to be emotionally intelligent, but where I falter is actually feeling and doing what the emotional intelligence is all about. Like I almost keep myself out of feeling because there's a fear of it getting too deep.
Mm.
And so I write about it all the time because in writing and what flow therapy is it's an objective look at what you're dealing with, but sometimes you do have to put it back into the subjective and feel again. And so in this time where sometimes I feel like it's literally like this, it's devoid of emotion and it's just boom 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 boom, that I want to be able to feel, to be, to just to breathe. You know what I'm saying? Like to stop and
Mhm.
enjoy the moment rather than being like, well, this is all to prepare for that.
I read this book called Stealing Fire last year, earlier this year, whenever. It's fucking September, bro. I don't know what's going on. So, um, it was probably this year, but whatever. And they talked about these breath hold divers off like the coast of France or something, or Spain, like somewhere in the Mediterranean where they do all this breath hold diving.
Okay.
And they talk about these guys that they'd get down to like, 160 meters or whatever the number was, like crazy deep on a breath hold,
Wow.
and then they would get down and they would have like this moment, like they're down at 160 feet. They're like, and they've broken the record and they're like, well, how deep can I go? Can I go to 161? Can I go to 162? And one of those, it was an interesting question. It says, you never really know how deep you can go until you die, until
Right.
it's like kind of impossible to know that answer. It's really interesting. And the fear kicks in like way before death. It kicks in
Right.
way, way before that. It was just a really interesting thing to think about and talk about. These breath hold divers, like kind of getting more obsessed with the number than the reason that they're actually diving, and so that
Yeah.
sometimes, oh man, I love this lesson that I just learned myself, like just that just landed on me just now. So it's just it's really fascinating because we do that a lot. We really do, whether it's downloads or
Oh yeah.
bank account numbers or whatever the number is. We're so obsessed with that as a culture. It's really,
Right.
really fascinating. And then it was this other part of the book that I thought was interesting, is really similar. So they talked about monks who like sit on the top of a mountain for like 10 years and just meditate, attempting to learn how to get out of their own head and like
Right.
experience, right? Or you can like strap on a squirrel suit and like jump off a cliff and achieve that exact thing in 43 seconds, because when you're flying through the canyon at freaking, I don't know,
At
90
like terminal
miles,
velocity.
yeah, like you're flying through the canyon at 190 miles per hour. It's impossible to not be like really dope, really dialed and like focused on exactly where you are. You're not
Yeah.
thinking about, did I leave the oven on? And this other
Yeah.
guy, like they did an interview in that book with this other dude that he was like the same thing. Like where can we find the balance in between the mountain and the squirrel suit, and like which of these activities can be the most effective for you achieving what it is. And it's been cool watching your process. Like for a while it was the pros, and now it's like letting that go.
Yeah.
It's just the art of it. It's like, oh, I'm still doing words. And the Joel says he meditated on the top of a mountain and got bit by an ant. Yeah, you should have just jumped off the cliff with the squirrel suit on, bro. We'd achieve that stuff so much quicker. But then again, it's just like that number again. We get addicted to that 160 feet. We get addicted
Yeah.
to the ant bite, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fast. We can get addicted to the prose, the rhymes, the music, the beats, the cartoon, the graphics, like all that cool stuff that you've done. And
Yeah.
then it's really fascinating instead of like just what can I let go of. It's an interesting thought, man. Hmm. It was probably the most powerful book I read whenever I read it in a year
That's that.
span.
Yeah.
A really cool book.
What was the book again?
It's called Stealing Fire. I had a copy. I just gave it away last week. So,
Stealing Fire.
Stealing Fire. I'll put in the comments.
Okay.
It's the premise of the book is we spend like $4 trillion as a global economy on like getting out of our own heads.
Yeah.
whether it's drugs or sex or video games or extreme sports or caffeine or coffee or whatever it is. And it was just like the book shows like that left and extreme, like the sitting on top of the mountain, like versus the squirrel suit, and like
Hmm.
kind of describes like all these ways that the government or Google or people at Burning Man or whatever it is are kind of hacking this thing that people are the flow, like they're trying to hack, like how can we be in flow more. And it's like
Right.
that thing that that guy jumping in the squirrel suit is attempting to discover. How can I be this more? How can I jump off a higher mountain? How can I dive to 170 meters instead of 160? How can I be so dialed in the moment versus sitting on the mountain, you know? And it's like, how can we do that more effectively without ending our lives prematurely?
Right.
Because I think that as soon as you get addicted, they also talked about this woman free skier who was like, there's like the north face of K2 or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like 4 attempts in a row. Like there's an avalanche or she crashed and she almost died. Like had to get hella lifted off the thing while she's attempting to find this whatever it is that we're searching for,
Right.
you know, because we're all searching for something. And then
Right.
how many times she almost had to die before she was like, oh, maybe I should go search somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe the clue to go do a different thing. And, you know, yet that story could go, you know, she could die or she could discover it while trying. I mean, this is everybody's story. There's 7.7 billion people of us on the planet. It's all different and just what we're
Right.
searching for and stuff like that. It's really fascinating. So it's just and then the way they kind of tie it off at the end, like what they believe and how you can kind of not get addicted and what the signs are to look for. And yeah,
Right.
yeah, this is written
That,
like kind of yeah, it's cool.
that sounds like a cool ass book, man.
This is a cool book, man. It's really cool. Really,
Dude.
really cool. One of the most interesting facts from the book that I read, there's this whole chapter on like the pale and what beyond the pale is and why we're scared of beyond the pale. And but this one guy in British Parliament did all this research, right? This doctor,
Hmm.
super smart guy, and he brought all his evidence back to British Parliament. He's like, I have the evidence. Here it is. A tablet of ecstasy is about as dangerous as a 20-mile bicycle ride. And people got really, really upset that he shared that. And
Tablet of ecstasy is as
yeah,
dangerous as a 20-mile bike ride.
yep. And you live in Portland, so think about that. Think about what he's
What?
really saying.
This is starting to bend my brain, dude.
Yeah, it's supposed to, because we're been told, me and you're from the same generation. You know, we saw the news articles and stuff and the news things like ecstasy poking holes in your brain and stuff like that, right?
Right.
What he really means, and I'll say it in a different way, is that if I go ride my bike 6,000 times for 20 miles each time, one of those times I'm going to either get hit by a car or crash. I'm going to have a medical intervention.
Ah.
Or you say 6,000 people go take if you send 6,000 people out to do a 20-mile bike ride, there's going to be a medical intervention for one of those. Ecstasy is the same thing. If you take 6,000 people and you all give them a tablet of ecstasy and they go have a good time, you're going to have a medical intervention with one of those people.
So I guess
Yeah.
it's what? Is it pick your choice? Like, is it
No, it's just
is
about relative danger.
okay.
Yeah. But one of the things that why the government does not want you to know that information is because if we were all popping psilocybin and looking at the world in a different way, we would all stop paying our taxes. You know, so it is completely acceptable to go get hit by a bicycle every once in a while. And you know, in Portland has the highest fatality rate for people getting hit by bikes of any city in the United States. And so
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. But they ended up firing this guy, scribbling all over his stuff and like burying him in a basement somewhere because they don't want people knowing these things. And it's like kind of like what's his name in the books, like because he stole the fire from the gods and then he gave it to the humans. Because like now the humans have this ability. And so it's like this whole thing about mushrooms and MDMA and all the positive things that they could be doing for people with PTSD, especially in military veterans. Yet you don't want people seeing the world differently, because then we're going to do stuff differently. And it's like this whole thing. It's like if you dive too deep in your writing, like say you have a client that dives, they like go deep and they're like, oh, I've been looking this up. Like they go back outside and in the green, the leaves looks a little bit differently.
Right.
And they do everything differently. And so that's kind of what the book is about. It's like, here's the information. It's kind of like Elon Musk giving away all his patents to all his super electronic cars, because he wants the people to have that information. And he doesn't want the government to control it. So it's a very similar thing. Like if the government's controlling, all this truth about anything, think about the food pyramid. And we used to think that eating mostly carbs was the right thing to do. And now, pasta. Yeah. And now it's like, nah, you need to eat more fat, more healthy fats. And so, it's just a fascinating thing. So that's really what the book is about. Like I got done reading that book and I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
You're like, this air doesn't smell the same.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It also talked about how we colonize the United States of America. We bring tobacco and alcohol with us. And then when we meet these savage people that are like smoking peyote and worshiping the earth, we like put a label that's devil worship. And that peyote smoking and whatever hallucinations you see must be devil worship as well. And so that's how we keep that behind the pale, even though tobacco and alcohol are both in the top 10 most dangerous substances on the world. That's completely socially acceptable. Whereas mushrooms or MDMA aren't even they're not even in the top 10. It's not even on the top 10.
Isn't that funny? Like, what if it was reversed to where we grew up where mushrooms was okay? Like, let's say we were in a society where mushrooms was okay. Tobacco and alcohol was just like, man, that shit will fuck you up, dude. Like, I always think about what is the conditioning, like from when you're younger, what is the conditioning doing to you to where you're accepting that? So we accept alcohol and tobacco. Sure, man. Like I can go get drunk and like jump off a bridge. Like that's cool. But I can't do it like on mushrooms because, well, that's weird. That's just hallucinogenic.
Yeah. Well, because it's an altered state. And when you alter your state, you see the world differently. And then, don't get me wrong. There's been people that have, there was this whole part of that book too, where this guy, and was this doctor's name is Dr. Julian something. He did like extensive MDMA experimentation on himself and like his little team of scientists. Like they did all the research by doing it themselves so they could have like really accurate stuff, But then at the end, he was like, it was just kind of like jumping on the squirrel suit. He's like, okay, I'm altering my state. I'm seeing the world in an entirely different way. Yet, like, what's the end game? What's the 170 meters, 200 meters? And then finally you have a lung squeeze and you die. And it's just one of those things, because galactically speaking, we only have so much leverage to explore. Because if you go too far to the right, you're going to freeze to death. You go too far to the left, you're going to burn up.
True. So we have to operate between this, like, how can I extract the most out of this area that I've got? Like, where I'm not dead and like, I'm living, but I'm not dead, but I'm experiencing to the highest form that I possibly can.
I think that's the $1 million question, man, that I don't think we get to have the answers to until we pass. That's just me though. Like we continue pushing. Dustin and I did one of these videos. We talked extensively about being out of your comfort zone. If you stay inside your comfort zone too long, if you don't leave it, you'll eventually die. Like spiritually, your soul will die. But if you spend too much time out there in the desert, you burn up. You spend too much time out there in the tundra, you freeze to death, like literally.
Right.
But a little bit of time in the desert and then come back to the real world. A little bit of time out in the tundra, then come back. And then you can stay a little bit longer in either space. And it's just a training thing.
Yeah.
until you finally reach your limit.
I
But
think
I
that's
don't think
true.
there's no way to know what your limit is until you've found it, and that's like when the end happens.
Right.
Maybe.
Or I mean, it all depends because I kind of like I've been growing through this thing like where you grow for growth's sake. But what's the
Mhm.
intention when you're growing for growth's sake? Like, are you doing it just to literally put you outside? Like, are you addicted now to being
Mhm.
outside your box?
Mhm.
And so then I started to think like, you ever like get yourself into something and you go, why the fuck did I do this, man? Like, I know this is supposed to be freaky. I know it's supposed to be scary, and I did it for that purpose. But at the same time, what was my intention? What am I going to draw from this? Like, or am I doing it just to freak myself out, just to put myself in this state?
Natalie says some ways to expand humanness is spending time in imagination, seeking joy, and cultivating creativity. I completely
Yeah.
agree. For some people, seeking joy is far, far out of their comfort zone, which is, I think it's just, yeah, to be in that truly alive space is either fear or joy, one of the two. Like,
Right.
perhaps it's a little too simple. Yet, yeah, being outside of that joy can be a little hot for people. But I do agree with you 100%, Natalie, for sure. But that is
I,
definite ways. That's the way I do it. I try to spend as much time in that joy spot as possible. You know.
right. But it's so funny how our mind works. Like, let's say you're in a spot. Ryan's in a spot where there's no fires to put out. There's nothing going on. There's no stress. And so you're in a spot and you're like, okay, cool, man. I get to just chill here. And then your
Mhm.
mind goes, wait. And then it starts exploring. Like I wrote a piece called The Searchers, where you start exploring the vast lands. You go out to the very edge of the land because you're like, I know something's out there, man. I know something's out there. So you took the time that you had for joy and you're like searching for stress. It's the weirdest thing. And I'm like, why the fuck do we do this? Why?
Um, the only answer that I have right now is that we get to label the why. You know, and I think that's part of really. I do it to expand my own awareness of who I am and to increase my experiences. Yet, I am very comfortable with my with my chosen lifestyle. I'm 40. My wife and I both work at home. We both share the kids during the day. I
Right?
come in here, I hang out with Devin and Dustin, whomever else is here, and we talk about this weird stuff. We push our minds, man. My mind's bending a little bit. Yeah, dude. Like, so we're like kind of exploring beyond the pale, like right here, like in the comfort of my own home. And then sometimes I go hike like for 7 hours.
Right.
And or I bring clients in here and we talk about their stuff. Or
Right.
the last month I had hired a voice coach, and if you were
Oh,
looking from the outside looking in, it would look like singing lessons. It was completely something else. It kind of blew me away, and I was like freaking out. And I think it's just like, to me, the simplest, most boiled down example is like when we used to live in caves, and
right.
you got food in the cave. The cave is safe. You stay in the cave. Mama's happy. Baby's fed. There's freaking a big side of meat in here that I get to chomp on, and then the meat starts to go away, and then you're like,
Yeah.
man, do I need to leave the cave? It's comfortable in here though. You're like, nah, we can break
Right.
these bones open. There's marrow in these bones. Somebody had to want to really stay in the cave to figure out that there was marrow in bones, right?
And they're like, I'm going to work and extract all of the stuff
Yeah.
from this piece of bone.
Yeah. And then once that runs out, they're like, man, fuck, I have to leave
Right.
or die
Like,
if
man, I
that's
could
the
have done this like a
choice.
month ago and just got
Yeah.
more. Shit.
Could have got more. But the thing is that when you leave the cave, the saber tiger is out there and he may eat you.
Right.
But then, but the more you do that, it's like you carve the sticks. Like, oh, if I have this stick, I can stab him with it. If I make the stick 10 feet long, I could stab him from a far ways away, and
If I
it's
got
like,
like a bow and arrow, I could
yeah,
shoot that
for sure.
motherfucker.
I can sneak up on him, or I can bring Uncle Jerry with me. Oh, Uncle Jerry got eaten last week. But what I learned is that Uncle Jerry didn't dig a hole and cover his poop up. And that's how we
Yeah.
got caught. And so it's just like, boom, it's just expanding the thing. I don't know. I think a lot of it is just because our DNA wants us to get out and find more,
I
and
think
Yeah.
I think you're right, dude. I think in today's society of how we're not technically survivalists anymore. Like we don't go out to face the saber-toothed tiger. The saber-toothed tiger comes in the forms of, oh crap, dude, like, oh man, I gotta spend the weekend with the in-laws. Shit.
Yeah, man.
Or like, hey dude, like I'm gonna go, I don't know, like I'm gonna go base jumping, or I'm gonna go, oh now I'm stressed about like the washer is making this weird clicking sound, so now I'm gonna ratchet it up about, I'm gonna try and get to engage fight or flight in a world where there is no fight or flight. Like, do you feel like that's why we expand and we go and we have to grow, because that's the same kind of search?
I have two different answers for that. I think if we look at stuff in terms of a global population, we're eventually going to eat up all the marrow out of the bones.
Yeah.
And I think that deep down on the lizard brain level, we know that. So that's why we're also, I think that's probably the answer to the question. Again, I have no idea because I don't know, because I didn't create this, whomever created it, right?
Right.
And or the video game that the people just outside of our reality program to put themselves into, and now we're playing, somebody's playing you and me right now, like, hey, let's go play these philosophical assholes. They're just talking for a freaking hour about whatever. And so it's just yeah. And so I think deep down inside we know that we're chomping at the marrow right now. And so we're building space technology so we can go to Mars. And we're figuring out how to do that. And
because like we see like that writing on the wall. We're like, oh shit, we're about to tap this place out. All right, let's go. We got to go somewhere else, man. Shit.
yeah. And that's been shit, man. It's like you sit in the house till the Easy Max gone, and then it's like, well, all right. And then we build these conveniences in to attempt to solve the problem. Yeah, we don't realize it's just causing the same problem. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. How do we stop? Will we stop? I really like the fact that you and me can talk from 2,600 miles away, but the freaking mines they have to dig to find the freaking stuff to build this laptop, like it's killing the earth. Nah, I actually don't agree with that. It's not killing the earth. It'll eventually kill us. That's what I think is more true.
Yeah.
Or the earth will get sick of it and expel us. Yet I still believe that we're a product of the earth. I
still feel like Mother Nature has like a turnover rate, though. You know how it goes. Like,
yeah.
She was like, dinosaurs, cool. All right. Hey, can you cue that? Okay, bring that down. Yep, we need that.
From as far as we can tell, being the people who've collectively analyzed and taken scientific data in the last 100 years, we believe that the earth has thawed and frozen over 4 times in a cycle. Like there's been 4 ice ages.
Okay.
And yeah. And from what we can also tell, they're about 10 to 20,000 years apart.
Are we due for one?
Yeah. And guess how long creationists think the world, how old it is? About 10,000 years. And that's because that's as far back as our stories go, because, whatever. And then before that, it was all this other stuff. I want to answer this. I want to talk about this question that Natalie asked. She says, how can we make joy more accessible? Because I was talking about joy being just as scary as fear for a lot of people. I think we go out and find ways to more fully experience it. Yeah. And for me, having a conversation with Devin about this, about whatever we want to talk about, is way more fun than jumping off a cliff. To me, it's way more fun. I've done it. I've skydived a couple times. It's super cool. But when I got done, I was like, I'm glad I checked that off the block so I don't have to do it ever again.
Right.
And
I
so
feel like this has more longevity than like skydiving, because at any moment you could something could go wrong in a skydive and you could die. This is more of like, okay, this is kind of like skydiving, except we're like jumping inward and down, and actually talking about what no one else is talking about but wants to talk about.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe. For sure. I mean, that's why I do it, because, and I think just to kind of touch on her question a little bit more, one of the reasons I do this is because this is super fun for me.
Right.
And the more I do it, Devin's here this week. I got Dustin coming on next week. Natalie, we need to schedule you. Let's get you on the 14th of October. I'm booked out on Monday. 14th of October. I want you on. We'll talk about whatever comes up. And then and it's because I just like talking to people about whatever. Like, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. I don't want to plan it. Like, cause I just want to see what happens, because it's just more fun to me. And then yeah. And then it's fun for me to also, I was in the Navy for 20 years working for the man. It's fun for me to see how long I don't have to go to an actual real job, whatever that means, and just do this and figure out how to make it work from my own space. That's really fun for me. And I think the more that we do that, the more that we push, the more we are able to push. And then I think that makes joy more accessible. Does that make sense? I'll put you, message me an email. I have your email, Natalie. I'll put you in the calendar. So, yeah.
I also think that we have to look at joy as like, I think there's a lot of rewiring in that statement to look at joy as more accessible, because I think that we look at fear as the default. Like, this is what we think about first. If we were to take how many times we feared something and we go, well, instead of doing that, let's think about joy. Let's joy something. Like, I feel like that flip would create a mind shift. But right now, fear is the default. Like, we fear everything because of that, like, fight or flight. Like, this is our survival mode. But if we took that and flipped it to joy, it's like, I still think sometimes our minds go, but how are we going to survive if we're always like happy?
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think because one of the things that I think that our lizard brain intentionally does, because trauma does happen.
Yeah.
No matter how much we attempt to prevent it, I think it's one of the hardwired matrix style program dichotomies of this world. That, like, no matter what, like, I did a consult with a guy last week. He's like, I had a really great childhood and I have trauma because of that. Like, and yeah, sure enough, like, it's there because stuff is so good that when it happens, bad stuff happens, he doesn't know how to handle it because he didn't have to deal with much challenging things growing up.
So he's always in fear of the bad because he had good as like a constant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Natalie says, instead of always happy, what about always connected? Fear is much more close to, my biggest fears are all tied to being, Natalie says the fear is so much closer to feeling alone. All my deepest fears whenever they flare up, it's always about being, okay, it was like Dustin, Devin, fuck. Devin, I keep calling you my other name.
It's a similar sound.
Yeah, Devin, Dustin. If I take mine and I 3-word it out, it always ends up to being by myself or being ignored or being, a scared and lonely little boy. Like, that's all the
bottom layer of the layer cake.
Yep, all the way. That's all it is. So I believe in that 100%. And so
that's funny.
Yeah, it's interesting that she brings that up, though. She talks about joy is connected and abundant, because in my greatest fears, though, because I've been working to make real connections, I can lean on those connections really easily to only be dipped in that fear for moments, and then just kind of be pulled right out.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It is.
Indeed.
I feel like, I don't know. I'm kind of getting tired of being scared all the time. That's what roboticism was all about. Like, there was literally a line that says, I'm tired of being afraid, tired of rules, tired of feeling like I'm broken and I need to be rewired, but I can't find the tools. Like, I'm tired of like this second guessing, like, okay, I'm supposed to be afraid. My natural state is afraid, but I'm tired of that shit. Like, I want to be like Neo and just fly out of the matrix and be like, hey man, I'm making new rules.
I love that you brought that up. What was Neo afraid of losing more than anything?
I feel, well, It was Trinity later.
Trinity. He was afraid of losing Trinity, and that was the source of all his power. I mean, other than the actual source, but that was his motivation.
And the funny part is, it before he even knew it, that was it. Like, she was the driving force. Like, she was the one that found him.
Yeah, she's the one that found him. She's the one that pulled him out. She was the one that was first there. Dude, I'm like covered in goosebumps right now, because that fear it's super important. My fear of having to go back and work for the man and being in that scared and lonely place where you're not allowed to share who you are. I use that to keep me doing this, to push harder, to keep coming on here and talking in front of whoever will listen, doing this. It's so important. So I would invite you to say, how can you use that fear to propel you?
Right.
Same exact fear of being in the cave and starving to death that got us outside to actually fight the saber tiger.
See, that's the funniest thing, because fear is that it's exactly what pushes you. Like,
yes,
the fear of failure, the fear of unsuccess is what makes successful people do what they do, because they don't want to be unsuccessful. If you didn't have that driving force, then you wouldn't be so hell-bent on doing what you do. So it's almost like you have to have the fear in you in order to push to what you want. It's almost like you have to have a version of you that you chase. You almost have to have a version of you that's pushing you, that you're running. I wouldn't call it like running away from, but that's pushing you from behind.
I think, excuse me, because if you're in the cave and the marrow runs out and you don't have any fear, what happens next?
I don't know. You beat your head against a rock and hope for,
or you just curl up and go to sleep and not wake up. Like, oh, I don't need to leave. Like, why? Oh, I'm gonna die. Like, big fucking deal. Which is interesting.
Right.
It's really interesting. Another book that I read last year is called "Everybody Is Wrong About God." Talks about, like, psychologically why we create dogmas and create all these things that we create. And one of the most powerful things in there, his name's James Lindsay, the author, says we could all do a lot better if we were more comfortable with not knowing.
God, isn't
just
like
more
that
comfortable with not knowing, and practice being, because when you think about it, like, how much stuff do you know?
I don't know that much. Like,
I don't.
in a cosmic scheme,
dude,
like,
nothing.
From here until the infinite end of the universe, I know jack shit.
Nothing. Yeah, but we don't want to acknowledge and be okay with that.
We hold on to these little things that we know. We're like, oh my God, like, I know this. Fuck what I don't know. I know this. This is good. I can hold on to this. I'm going to just desperately go like this. And I'm going to go, I know it.
Yeah. And how many people do you see that are in toxic work relationships, or they're in bad relationships at home, or they're, they don't pursue stuff because of that same thing, that same familiarity, that comfort? Because
dude, it's everywhere you look. Like, most people are in that state of this, rather than, like, it's the weirdest thing. You think that letting go is technically, you don't have control of it. You don't have control, is technically illusion when we look at it. Like,
it's 100% an illusion. It's funny because it's one of those things that I would say is 100% an illusion and is also not. Just like there is no spoon, yet Neo was definitely looking at one. So it's just one of those things. Yeah, exactly. It's really like, I'm a firm believer that this chair is part of my reality that I'm projecting, yet I'm also pretty sure I just picked it up.
I mean, yes. Physically,
it's crazy.
You just did that. But it was connected to you at the same time. So the chair became you. I mean, if you really want to go in deep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's just me. And I mean, I think that's the thing that I know the most, that everything that I'm looking at, everything that I'm touching, feeling, experiencing, it's just me.
Yeah.
And the thing in here that's currently the thing in here that's currently, it's literally projecting and experiencing simultaneously.
Yep.
And like, that's the, it's crazy. I am the chair, man. Yes, I am, Joel. Right on, dude. Well, I got to hop off here. This was dope for me. I'm stoked you're here.
Dude,
Yeah.
this has been one of the best conversations I've had in a while.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. We'll need to have you back.
Yeah, dude.
Cool, man. Much love. It's probably getting cooler there in Portland than it is here in Hawaii. I'm still sweaty. And
Yeah, no, dude, it's kind of starting to turn over to fall. Like, and this is where Portlanders, like, though they say, yeah, man, I'm stoked about the sun. The first time they see rainfall, they're kind of like, they go like this. They go, oh fuck yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
They're like, oh, sweet, I can put on a hoodie, man. That's good.
Dude, I'm so stoked for hoodie weather here. It's like 4 months out of the year. Joel, what was the name of the book again? I know it was by Joel Dispenza. I can probably go find it, but Joel said, I don't know. The live comments are so confusing to me sometimes once you stop the video.
Because isn't there like, there's ones that you can see, and then there's ones that came in, but then you didn't see, and then you're like, what? When did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. Right on, man. I'll catch you later. Shoot me the link to your
To the
your
ED?
SoundCloud or what? Yeah, and then I'll put it in here too so people can check it out. And I will catch you later.
Thank you very much for having me on, bro. Really appreciate it.
Easy, man. I'll see you around.
All right, man.
Later. Peace.